All right, we're live finally. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I see we already have a lot of people listening in today. That's awesome. I am Pedro Zimmer. I am from the artist relations team here at Musiversal, and today I have Devin with me. Hey Devin, how's it going?
Hey, going good. Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, we already have. I can see Darius is here. Darius is always in our live streams. That's awesome to see you back here, man. And today we're gonna talk about beat making and a lot of way other, many other interesting things. But before we begin, I just want to let you guys know that the current window for Unlimited is open. So if you have been on the wait list and you've received the invitation, now it's the time to join. And you have only a couple of days left to do so. So take advantage to do that now, and you'll be able to do some great music like the music that we're gonna do today here with our amazing musicians, producers, mixing engineers, mastering engineers, and all that. So before we start, I just want to let you guys know also that we're gonna listen to some music today and we're gonna produce some music today. And if you are Musiversal users, you know that we don't just stream audio via Zoom or via Google or via YouTube because we like to hear absolutely everything. So if you want to hear absolutely everything that we're doing today in the best quality possible, you have the Audio Movers link here on the description or in the comments. I'm sorry. I've just pasted it there. There's no password. You just join there and you'll be able to listen to everything that's going on while we are making some beats. If you don't want to join Audio Movers, that's fine. You'll be able to hear that here on YouTube as well. But of course, it's not going to have the same quality as Audio Movers. So I highly recommend you to go and join Audio Movers. Sounds good? The other thing that I want you guys to let you know, and I promise Devin that I'll get the microphone to you after this one, is that guys, if you have any questions, any things that you'd like to ask, please do so in the chat, and then I'll ask Devin as soon as we have some time. Sounds good? Any questions that you might have. So, Devin, we're going to talk about beat making today,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep. One of my favorite things to do. Um, yeah, and I was thinking I might just, I'm not sure how many of you all have experienced a beat making session with me before, but I was going to just do a quick rundown on kind of my template, my workflow, give you all a chance to see it in action. And then, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions throughout the process. So feel free to stop me at any point and we can always go over things when we finish up as well.
Awesome. Yes. And if you have or if you had have a session with Devin in the past, please let us know in the chat, and Devin will probably remember you because he remembers everybody. So, before we begin, Devin, can you explain to us what is a beat making session? Like, what can I expect to achieve in a beat making session with you? Are you going to make me sound like as good as the greatest rapper of all time?
It's possible. It depends a lot on what you send me.
Oh, damn.
So, you know, some sessions I'll be programming like a trap beat, which is a scenario where maybe you send me some vocals, and if we have time, we could kind of maybe get you sounding the way you would like to sound. But in a lot of cases, it's basically a drum recording session for programmed drums. So, I'm finding the right kicks, the right snares, hats, etc. for your song. Coming up with patterns, and it could be anything from like I mentioned, a trap groove to some hip hop, maybe a pop track, dance track. I do like cues for film scores and things like that with cinematic percussion. So the beat making sessions cover a broad range of activities. Another thing I do fairly often is drum replacement for live drum sessions. So I'll kind of set up some triggers on the kick and snare tracks and kind of dial in some reinforcement for live drum kits as well. So there's a lot that happens in the beat making sessions, and hopefully that kind of gives people a general idea of what could go down.
Sounds great, man. Yeah, this is something that it could be a little bit confusing sometimes because the word beat can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. For example, when I hear the word beat in a hip hop context, I'm not only talking about the drums in the track. I'm talking about the full track. Is that included in the beat making session, or are we talking only percussion here?
Yeah, so I'll lay down keys, bass lines, counter melodies, all that kind of stuff as well if there's time for that. Um, the only thing I don't do in beat making sessions is write for people. Um, so as long as I have a chord progression to go off of, we can kind of jump in and take care of all those different aspects that make up a beat. Um, I know that is a confusing thing for various reasons, but yeah, we can do that as well. I just don't write beats from scratch for people.
Right, that makes sense. And now, this might be a bit of a dodgy question. If I send you a Spotify link and ask for the beat exactly as it is playing on Spotify, like, I don't know, I want to sound like Dr. Dre, are you okay with that to, just do the same beat? Or are you going to use that as a reference to create something new?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally cool with that. The only place where I draw the line is melodies. I won't plagiarize anybody's melody. Um, but yeah, we can lift a chord progression that's at the same tempo with the same style of drums, and kind of take elements from that production. I just won't ever copy anybody's exact melody. And I had a session earlier today where um, the chord progression for the client's song was the same chord progression as Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. And I was kind of whistling it as we were working on it. And they said, "Whoa, what is that? I want that on the beat." And I said, "Well, we might have to leave that one out because that's Bob Marley."
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so Charles just commented that, and it was really cool. He's really glad to hear that because he was thinking this was mainly for hip hop or trap. So, this is not only for hip hop or trap. This could be like for a pop song as well, right? Or even for the song that we're gonna work on later today is not hip hop or trap at all.
Right, right. Yeah, I've got a few ideas, but there's a lot of different directions that could go too. So it'll be fun to work on that.
I am excited. So before we move on to that particular song and we actually work and show you guys what a beat making session is, when we were talking about this webinar, Devin, you told me about two general things that happen when people are looking for a beat. Usually, they might have just a song that has a harmony and maybe some guitars, pianos in it, with no drums going on, or they could have like some placeholder drums going on. Can you talk to us a little bit about the difference to your approach when it comes to those cases? How do you approach it differently when you have placeholder drums or not?
Yeah. So if there are placeholder drums, that means they've given at least some thought to what they'd like to have happen in the track, percussion wise. And so there might be other elements that are following that. The bass will lock up with their kick pattern, things like that. So in those cases, I'll kind of stick more or less with what they've thrown out there as a general idea. Whereas if there is no drums at all, it kind of is more open for me to interpret what I think could happen in the song. And in those cases, I'll just kind of ask what the general textures are. Are we looking for a dancey pop sound, a cinematic sound? Are we trying to blend rock and roll and trap together for this song? Whatever it might be. And I'll just kind of follow my gut because I don't know how many people know this, but I'm also a drummer, um, super active gigging musician. So I have a decent intuition for what a groove could be in a lot of cases. And so if there's no placeholder drums, I'll just kind of make something up. And I'm super open to feedback in the sessions as well. So sometimes people will say that's perfect, I love it. Other times they say, can we move this kick or delete that kick, or add a roll here instead of there. And those are all things we can dive into. So
That's awesome. And how can I prepare to a beat making session? Like, what should I write you like the notation of the drum parts that I want you to play? Should I give you references of the track? Like, how, what kind of files are you expecting me to send you so that you can do your thing and be great at the track?
yeah, great question. Um, the most common scenario file wise is like the musical bed, which maybe that's like chords and bass and counter melodies could all be inside of one file together. If there's vocals on the track, I like to have those separate so that I can hear them, uh, but I can also mute them because beat making, a lot of times you're looping a section over and over again to kind of hear a pattern develop. And if there's a vocal baked into that stem, you might kind of get worn down a little bit by it. So it's always nice to be able to mute the vocal and bring it back in at different points. And then, yeah, maybe there's some placeholder drums, maybe not. So those are kind of the audio files that I receive generally. And then another super useful file is a chart for the song, not necessarily a drum chart or like any sort of rhythm specific notation, but just a chart that covers like what is the chord progression and the form for this song, so that if I do even just do something like adding a bass line, um, I can check it out and not spend too much time figuring out exactly what's happening in the harmony or whatever it might be.
That makes a lot of sense, yes. And when it comes to references, what kind of references do you like to get from the clients? Usually, people send you the feel they're trying to achieve or the sounds that they're trying to use. How do you work with that?
Yeah, so my favorite way to work with references is to find something that's as specific as possible in terms of like the groove of the song. Um, it's possible to get a reference that's at a different tempo and just say, hey, I really like these drum samples or the tones of these drums. That's a super valid and helpful way to use a reference. But my favorite is like, this song is the same BPM as my song. I like this groove. I like the way it feels. Let's do that. And then I have like a really good idea of how to prepare for that session and how to approach the track, and just how to structure the time we have. So that's like my number one favorite option right there.
Sounds great. We already have a question from our listeners. Charles just asked if you also record live drums or any other percussion.
I do. I don't know if I can show you because my computer is kind of tethered down by cables.
Yeah, I think we lost you.
I got the live drum kit right there. It's always mic'd up and ready to go. I also have a mic over here right next to me that I'll use for recording any kind of percussion. I do a lot of tambourine, hand drums, shakers, all sorts of other auxiliary percussion. Um, so if there's time, maybe I'll throw some tambourine on the track today, just as an example of how that could go. But short answer is yes to both.
Awesome. You won't only use samples when you're beat making. You're using real sounds as well.
Yep.
And actually, I have now a question which was really interesting. No one ever asked me that. I was right before this. I was talking on the phone with a client that is joining Unlimited now, and he's about to set up his first sessions and record the first time. And he was asking specifically about this song that he's producing, and he wants to put like some sounds like you know how Pink Floyd albums has some sound effects going on, like a helicopter going by, or maybe some rain and thunders, that kind of stuff. Do you do any
Mm-hmm.
of that?
I do. Yeah, and that's actually really funny that you asked that because I just finished a song today where I did some beat making and then we followed up with live drums on top of it, and then today we comped the live drums. But on that particular track, there were some lyrics referencing streams and waterfalls, and the client was interested in incorporating those sounds into the beat in some way. And I do have various folders and libraries of like just real world soundscapes, you know, city sounds, rivers, oceans, rain, I don't know, all sorts of weird sounds, you know, kind of everything. And we sampled a stream, chopped it in to like a little sample, and programmed that into the track. So I do work with those kind of situations as well. Can't guarantee that I have everything that somebody might be looking for, but I do have a lot, and it's been a fun thing to work with so far. So
Okay, next song that we produce, I'm gonna ask for the singing of a very, very specific Brazilian bird, and you have to have that. Otherwise, we won't be able to do the song.
I might have to consult YouTube for that one.
We have another question from AF Ukpong. I hope I am pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. He thanked you for putting this together. So thank you, Devin, for putting this together. If the song is released and goes commercial, how are the credits handled? I actually can help you answer that later as well. Do you bring if he brings the ideas to be produced? Do you both get co-production credit? Do you get co-production credit? How does that work?
um, well, yeah, maybe you can help answer this one, but I would say all the musicians on the platform love to have credit for their work, and it's encouraged, but there is no split uh, on the ownership of the music that I would receive because all rights are released in full to the users. So um, credit is always appreciated, and that's it as far as I'm aware.
Exactly. Uh, well, it's pretty much what Devin said. We have, our artists love to get credit, and there are, of course, a couple of guidelines to follow when you are crediting, especially a couple of our artists. So, if you would refer to our FAQs in our website, there we have it very clear and explicitly laid out how you should address that and how who you can credit, who you cannot credit. But when it comes to royalties and copyrights, all that, every single session in Musiversal is 100% buyout. So there's no royalty splits there. There's no co-ownership of the production. Sounds good. Was I correct, Devin? Are you? Is that
Absolutely, yeah,
correct?
that sounded good to me.
That's awesome. Well, let's make some music then.
Let's do it.
Awesome. I'm very excited to see what you're coming up with this. What you're gonna come up with this.
Yeah, yeah, should be cool. Let me just find my window here. I'm not used to screen sharing from this platform. Does
Right.
everybody see
So
a DAW in front of them?
I see a DAW. Yes. So people should be seeing a DAW as well. So just for you guys to understand what this is a podcast opening, and that starts like a little bit orchestra, and then there's a twist, and this is where I need Devin to make his magic because I'm a terrible beat maker, and this is where Devin is gonna save me.
Cool. So, yeah, I'll just go ahead and play the original version up here real quick so we can get a feel for what we have going on. Yeah, so some cool, you know, orchestral, epic uh, things going on the first half, transitioning into yeah some kind of urban electronic, hybrid groove, which I think we could do something with. Try to give it a little love and see where we can take it. Does that sound
Exciting.
about right to you, Pedro?
That's exciting. Oh, and by the way, if you guys are hearing that, the trumpet was recorded by Musiversal's Jean Paul Frappier, which killed it. So, highly
Yeah,
recommend.
sounds amazing. Love
Uh,
that.
I just got a message from Unfivegettable. He said you're his favorite Musiversal musician, and if you haven't worked with Devin yet, he highly recommends it. So we have a superstar here, guys.
Nice. Hey, thank you on Five Gettable. Much love. Um, cool. So I'll play the other version, which is same deal with no drum programming on it. Nice. Sounds great. Um, so ideas that I have so far are that the first half sounds pretty full, pretty complete to me. I can imagine maybe like a little timpani roll helping with the transition there. Maybe I think is there a cymbal roll already? Let me hear that one more time. Okay, no cymbal roll, so I think that could be a cool transitional element as well. Um, but what I might kick it off with, if Pedro feels like it's a good place to start, is just the second half here, and try to find some drum samples that fit in.
Love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So my general approach here is that anytime we have a session, I'm prepping it. I'm getting the files loaded up. I'm also going through a bunch of sounds that I think could fit in with this track. And so I have like a bunch of snares here, lots of different flavors. Some people find this overwhelming. Um, for me, I'm really used to it, so I can pick them out fairly quick. But yeah, what I'll do is I'll just kind of loop this section and cycle through these. I'll just pick my favorite and kind of start laying some drums down. And just so it's a little easier for me, I might mute this tab so I don't hear the echo. And I'll try to keep an eye on the chat just in case, we need to put it on pause for a second. So,
Sounds good.
um,
So, right before you begin, I just want to remind everyone that's here that if you want to listen to the good quality audio, the uncompressed audio, the WAV file audio from this session, you can. You just click on the Listen to Audio Movers link that is pinned here at the comment section. There's no password. You can just join there and you'll be able to listen to Devin's computer without any compression, without any loss of quality. So yeah, Devin, feel free to do your thing and let's do it.
all right, here we go. Okay. That's my favorite snare so far. Another thing that is often overlooked in beat making is the pitch of drums. So usually after I find the sample, I am checking the pitch for it. So I'll just make sure I've got the right note on that snare there. So you can here, it's pretty tonal, and most drums are. And this one happens to be a C sharp, so it would have been a bummer if our main snare drum sound was just like a half step off. you know, that's not a pretty interval in a lot of cases. So I've got this snare on a C sharp. I did like this as well. It's got an interesting tone to it. Um, so I might try to layer that snare on top and see how that fits in. B flat for this guy. Not concert B flat, but whatever is a half step or a whole step down from C, based on whatever note that was. And we'll throw that in, see how it's sounding. I think that's a pretty cool blend. So I'm gonna check out some kicks. And I'm kind of leaning towards 5 and 9 here. I think other ones work well for different reasons, and a lot of times I'm, asking people how they feel, which direction they'd prefer to go in. Um, I might just go, and you can hear those are pretty similar. I'm gonna go with 5. I think it's like nice, tight, got a little click to it that helps it cut, but not too much sustain. And I'm just gonna kind of freestyle a pattern here as I usually do and see what comes out. And, I'm always just quantizing things quickly. We had a little issue right there, so we'll just clean that up. And we got some kick and snare. Get rid of that. Probably don't need that there. Um, so yeah, I think some hi-hats could sound really good here. I've got a few hi-hat options pulled up. I'll go through some of these real quick. And a lot of times I'm making a distinction between kind of like live hi-hat sounds or chunkier or longer hi-hat sounds and really tight hi-hat sounds. So you can see I've got all these are sent to mixer track 13 or channel 13. These are all 14. So when I send out the stems, they're separated and you have control over these. You can, dial in the mix as you please. Um, Speaking of the mix, maybe the drums are louder than some of you might have them in the final version of the song. I just kind of have them up front so we can really hear the tone of the drums and how they fit together, and just kind of hear the vibe the drums are creating. And then, as I mentioned, you have all the individual stems so you can tweak things as you like down the road. So I might throw some quarter notes or eighth notes depending on how you want to think about this BPM, and get some sixteenths going in between them. Actually, that's going to be very fast. We'll just go half as many there. And so I'll do that one more time. Here is just the live-ish hi-hats, just the trap hi-hats, and together. And I'm already hearing an idea popping into my head, which is like a little hi-hat roll here at the end of the phrase. So just gonna make those legato, do a little chop there, adjust the velocity, and see if it sounds cool. I liked it. I was cool with it. Um, and I just saw I've got a pause request here, so I'm gonna come back into the chat and see what we got going on here.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you now.
Awesome. Man, this is all sounding amazing. And before we move on, I do have one question that
Yeah, yeah,
came from a guy called Bug. It's a bit off topic, but I think it's good that it keeps the conversation flowing.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
you need a degree to do what you're doing? He's, coming out of high school and looking at his options. Like, do you, did you go to like a music production school? Where did you learn to do what you're doing? Where did you train?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I did not ever formally study beat making. I got my bachelor's degree in jazz performance on the drum set. I got my master's degree in contemporary performance on the drum set with an emphasis in production. So lots of time spent in the studio producing music, etc. But the beat making was something I learned essentially from a friend of mine, kind of starting back in high school. And I just fell in love with it. And I felt like I'm a drummer. I know about beats, pretty naive looking back, but I knew something that would be helpful for beat making. And I was really excited about it. So I just started spending tons of time um, doing that. And I got a job working as a beat maker while I was doing my bachelor's degree in jazz performance, working for an educational company called Lyrics to Learn, and it's a literacy program, so kids will read along to the words of a song. All the words are educational. They might cover I don't know, grammar concepts or history or, scientific concepts, whatever it might be. And that was my first official beat making job. And I got a job after that working for a publishing company in LA, making movie trailer cues. So the super epic, you know, 30-second to 1.5 minute cues that they play during trailers. And was always working with local artists, making beats for them, recording them, mixing them. So the beat making was something I just always did myself outside of school, um, in addition to playing live drums. And I did get to study a little bit of mixing and mastering. I did a summer program at Berkeley in Valencia, Spain. Submitted one of my songs I'd produced for an artist in town and won a free semester of online school from Berkeley. And I chose to study mixing and mastering in Pro Tools. So that was the first time where I was ever like, oh, I know what a compressor does now. I understand how to use this equalizer and all those kinds of things. So I eventually did learn, a little bit about this on the academic side of things, but really it was just something I went for from high school on and never stopped doing.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, do have a comment from AF Akpong saying that a degree may help, but you don't really need one to produce music. Success comes from practice and interest in your craft. And yeah, I would say that formal education does help. Like it gives you the discipline that you need to have to, practice every day and do things every day. But we can, if you make great music, people are not going to ask for your degree before listening to your track. They just
That's
want to
right.
listen to a really really good track. So but to, make a really really good track, a degree does help, I would say, definitely.
Yep.
So awesome, we can come back to music.
Cool. Um, let's see. I think, we've got a good foundation here. Um, I'm kind of wondering if like it might be interesting to stretch this out. Like, let's say, we have the introduction, but maybe at some point you might want some background music during a podcast to play underneath the segment where you thank your sponsors or something like that. So, would you be interested in kind of stretching this out a little bit and creating like a somewhat longer musical phrase out of it?
I'm very excited to see what you're thinking of. So let's do it.
Okay. Cool, cool. Yeah, this is gonna take a little figuring out on my part, but I'll work as fast as I can and keep an eye on the chat here. So just yeah, those two bars I could see repeating and sounding kind of cool. So I'm gonna try that. Um, maybe 3 times, and then on the fourth time, maybe we finish that out. So we got 1, 2, 3, and it might sound a little funky if that just tapers off like that. So a lot of times, what I'll do is kind of pull things into a little audio editor. Um, and I'll just grab that last note, which is what I'm interested in right now. And I'm going to paste that into an empty audio clip, pull that down here, reverse it, line that up with the ending, chop it, and put those on the same mixer track. And hopefully this sounds cool. Didn't take too long, but it's always nice when your efforts are rewarded. So let's see what we got here. Oh, and it looks like I went a little too far, so I'm going to have to tweak this somewhere. Let's see. Okay, cool. So I don't need quite as much of that reverse. And just to, maybe add a little inspiration. Uh, for me personally, sometimes I'll just throw some effects onto different samples. I threw just a couple things on when I was prepping this session, so let's just see how this sounds. We got like a cool little loop going there, and I mean, I would like to hear some kind of bass. So now you all get to see what happens if I don't have sheet music for something. Hopefully, it's not too painful. Okay, I think I got it figured out. Let's see what we got here. Went for the little bass slide at the end. Um, could be a fun musical gesture just to, you know, restart that phrase. I can see, got to give that a little nudge. So yeah, I think that's a it's a cool little loop. It could be nice to have that playing at a low volume while you thank Pepsi for sponsoring your podcast. um, and just for fun, still have no idea how any of this is going to sound, but I like to sometimes throw some other effects on these stems as well, just to see if anything cool happens. This is like a stock FL Studio plugin called Gross Beat, and sometimes it sounds cool to just kind of have things playing at half speed. So we'll see what we get there. And I would say today, Gross Beat didn't make the cut. But you just got to try things out, and sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not. But yeah, depending on how much time we have and how defined the goal is, there's always a little room to try an idea or two out. Um, and so it's always worth giving things a shot to see how they turn out. Um, I might just check in here with Pedro and see, do you want to develop this a little further? Do you want to check out some other examples? Or does anybody in the chat have any requests or ideas for this beat that they'd like to see put into action? I'm open here.
That's awesome. Well, first of all, I want to say that whatever you're doing, like this idea that you have of stretching it out and reversing it, it ended up sounding awesome. And I would like to thank Musiversal for sponsoring this podcast, in which we talk about stuff. That sounds really really cool. And the half beat thing, the halftime thing, it's so fun when it works. So sad it didn't work today, but
Yep.
it's awesome when it does. Yeah, if you want to pull up some other projects that you think it's interesting to show us, that would be awesome. We have about 15 minutes left, so we can explore that. While you do that, I'll answer to a question from Doozy Spiritual. He just asked, he's trying to sign up as an Afrobeat producer for Musiversal, and how do you go about it? Well, in Musiversal, we have a careers page in our website, in which you're gonna see the current openings that we have for for each position, since we hire each one of our musicians, if we are with auditions open or anything like that. So there is where you're going to send your resume and a couple of samples of your work. You're also going to send, of course, that we ask a couple of questions, and then we schedule a audition with you, which were very very uh, as you can see, you have to be basically as good as Devin to join. So we are very we have very high standards for those auditions. And yeah, this is how the process works for getting hired by Musiversal. So go to our website or careers page and see which openings we have available at the moment right now. So Devin, are you going to show me some other beats? What do you have in mind?
Yeah. I think it was just last week. I had a session with Un5 Gettable. Um, Shout outs to Un5 Gettable. Um, so I'd like to play a little bit of one of those as an example of how a session might go if there were no placeholder drums. It's just kind of like a musical bed, open canvas, and we just see um, what we can do. So I'll go ahead and pull one of those up real quick. Um, Audio Movers is probably going to need a little reboot here. I'm gonna save this file just in case we want to hop back in there at some point. And yeah, it looks like this is loading up right now.
Let me know whenever it's time to refresh Audio Movers.
Okay, it should be live.
Okay, let's refresh here. Yep, I got signal. So anyone in the live stream that's watching, that's listening through to us through Audio Movers, just refresh your place, your page, and then you'll be able to listen again.
Nice. Okay, so again, big shout outs to Un5 Gettable because he always comes with the heat, which makes things very fun for me. I'll just play kind of what he sent to me with no processing, no programming. This is just the original idea here. So you get a feel for it. It's pretty epic. Sounds great. And the idea here was like, ESPN Sports Night segment, something like that. Um, which, you know, brings to mind stadiums, arenas, and thinking of beats, I was like, okay, maybe some like some We Will Rock You type stuff could be cool here. So I ran through my drum samples and found a couple that was yeah, just kind of a little kick layer. I think that sounded kind of like a We Will Rock You stomp ish kind of sound to me. I also found pretty large and in charge clap there, um, as well as just some of those live sounding hi-hats. So my initial idea for that section was this. I'll stop it right there. We obviously had a little vibe switch come in, giant tom fill, and took it to Trap Town. Um, and just a quick breakdown here, switched up kick sample, got something pretty punchy. Found a nice little snare sample there. A lot of times I'll have two different snares, or maybe a clap and a snare. I got some offbeats going here. We have our live hi-hats playing eighth notes, and some trap hats here. Little crash. And we're back out to We Will Rock You. Um, so that was how that session went. This was like a little 30-minute cook up we did, and things always go great with On Five Gettable because, like I said, he always brings the heat. So that was a super fun session. But yeah, that's an example of where things could go if it's just here's an idea, throw some drums on it. Um, and I'm Five Gettable is always um, chiming in with great ideas, helping me select these samples, switching up patterns, things like that. So gotta give credit to him as well for helping this thing come together.
That sounds awesome. Unforgettable, if you're still here, shout out, like give a heads up on the chat because that sounded amazing, really really awesome. And when you are in those sessions, how much of those samples do you select before getting into the session with the client, and how much of those do you select with the client in the session?
Um, so generally, I aim to have every sample that could be used pulled up already, and we'll just kind of go through them as you saw in the last little session we did. But sometimes we don't find exactly what we want, and I've got to do a little hunting. Um, I've got a pretty good handle on where everything is. So usually I can find what we want pretty quickly, but you know, it just kind of depends. But I would say, 95% of the time, we've got what we need pulled up and ready to go within the session. So that's how that usually goes.
That's awesome. And actually, now a question for myself as a fellow beat maker, not as good, but a fellow beat maker, wannabe beat maker, if you would. Uh, how do you organize your samples? Because it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, I'll show you right here my browser window. That's a custom kit of my own samples that I made when my moniker was Demo back in the day. But I have just generation one, two, three, four. These are all like the first sound packs that I ever got back in the day. And just every so often when I feel like, I've got a pretty large body of sounds, and it just feels like a new chapter to me. I'll just start a new general folder. Um, and that kind of helps me know, like, in terms of periods of time where I'm looking. And then, I get to know all my kits, just by using them so often. So I know, um, if I want some drum and bass stuff, I'm going to go to Generation 3 to my drum and bass folder. I've got like my trap stuff, my Afrobeat stuff, and, all these kits are kind of, organized fairly well themselves. They've got their claps and snaps, the kicks, the hats, etc. Um, so yeah, that's my approach. It works for me, and so far so good.
Yeah, my folders are not that organized. I can tell you that. And do you create your own samples? Do you get samples from everywhere? How do you go about actually making those samples?
Yeah, so I make my own samples all the time. Um, recording my own drums. I've got a folder of my own drum breaks here that I'll use. I'll sample those. I'll kind of take samples and pitch them and crop them and modify them. And I have a bunch of outboard gear here on both sides of me, and I'll kind of tweak things in there as well. And when I get a sound feeling the way I like it, I'll print it and keep that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of generally how I'm doing it. I also, I buy new sounds. I have a Splice subscription with 10,000 credits waiting for me to download sounds. Um, I you know I get them everywhere really, and always trying to tweak things and get them sounding the way they feel right to me. And I think that kind of helps to dial in sound.
That's awesome. I think we lost you. Are you still there?
I'm
Testing.
here. Check
Okay.
check 1 2 1 2.
I think it was actually my connection that went a little funky for a while. But that sounds awesome. And before we're headed to the end now. And guys, if you're still listening and if you have any questions, now it's the time to ask because we're soon leaving. I have one final question from myself to you, Devin, and let's see if there's anyone else with a question. But what kind of files am I leaving the session with? So, are you going to send me the beat, the mixed beat? Are you going to send me each single instrument, each single track? How does that work?
Yeah, so I have everything pre-routed to the mixer, and the mixer is labeled. So anytime I'm exporting files, every sound used in the session, for the most part, is going to be on its own file. You know, if let's say I program some congas, I'll put all the congas on the same track. Just because that makes sense. But generally, everything is separate, and you'll get all of those plus the master bounce, so you can just hear the whole beat as it was when we finished our session. Um, a lot of times, people, just yeah, will use the master to write to or do whatever they want to do. Maybe they're going to track some vocals over it, and then they'll just pass the stems along to the mixing engineer down the road. So, you've got something to listen to right away, and you've got everything you need to have the song mixed down. Or, you can tweak it as you like if you like to kind of get your hands dirty as well.
Oh, awesome. We don't have any more questions from our chat, but I do have one more question to you, which is a bit of a dodgy question, maybe.
Okay.
If you your samples, can I steal your kick drum and use it in to make a beat of my own?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't have the official answer. I believe the idea is that the service is not uh, supposed to be for creating sample materials. So if you record guitar, um, I don't think it's supposed to be used as like a sample material. But at the same time, that's your song, and who's to stop you from sampling your own song? Um, so, as far as like the definitive answer goes, I do not know. Um, Personally, I'm cool with people using samples as they like. So, somebody really likes the snare and they are making another song and they know that's the snare they want. No complaints on my end.
Yeah, I wish I had the official answer for that as well, but I don't. I ran into we ran into a wall here, so I also don't know how to answer that properly. But and now before we go, now I just thought of another question. I see that you are writing this with MIDI, right? Can you do you export the MIDI and send me the MIDI files as well, or just the sounds?
Uh, in most cases, I just send audio files, but I'm happy to send MIDI. I do send it fairly often if, let's say I come up with the keyboard part, or some kind of bass line or counter melody. Sometimes people will ask for those MIDI files so they can, layer things up with them down the line. So, yeah, they're always available upon request.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Devin, for showing up today. I don't think we have any more questions from our chat. And I want to thank everyone from the chat that joined us today, which was a very, very awesome beat making webinar. I got to learn a lot. I got to understand much more about how beat making works in Musiversal. And I got to see how much better I need to get making beats, essentially. So thank you, Devin, so much for that. Do you have any final words?
I mean, that was a lot of fun. Loved working on the the podcast queue. Glad everybody could make it out today. I hope you all got something from this webinar. And if you ever need some beats on one of your tracks, you know where to find me.
That's awesome. You know what just happened? Right now, the same thing that happens in every single webinar just happened. I say, okay, guys, this is the last time, this is the last chance for you to ask any questions. And then no one asks any questions. And then I say, all right, thank you all, goodbye. And then we have questions. So, Devin, we have questions.
All right, hey,
Do
let's
you
do it.
have a genre you prefer to work with?
Well, that is a good question. Um, and it's a hard question because I love working on so many different genres. And I'm gonna have to answer by saying that my favorite thing to do is blend genres. If we had more time, I was gonna play another song where we mix together like cinematic percussion with rock and roll and trap, and it was kind of like something you might expect to hear in the opening sequence of like a Netflix superhero kind of show. Um, that's kind of the funnest stuff for me, is to say like, okay, let's get like some, I don't know, world percussion sounds with some trap drums, or let's get some like bluesy rock drums and kind of like flip a sample over them. So my answer is, my favorite thing to do is blend genres.
That's awesome. That's a good answer. And the last question from Bridget Nicolini. Devon, do you work as Devon? No, it's not Devon, it's Devin. But do you work as a producer slash arranger as well?
I do. Yep. I am producing a record for, well, one record for one artist, a great female vocalist, based in Colorado, currently living in California. And I'm producing a full EP for another artist out here. And yeah, that's kind of one of the main things I do when I'm not making beats on the platform. And um, yeah, it's something I love. And I gotta say, what the biggest game changer for me was Musiversal. I'm constantly bringing those projects to Musiversal and having the other musicians on the platform track over them, because they always add so much to the song and to the music and really bring things to life. So uh, yep, I'm always producing on the side as well.
That's awesome. And you are also available as a producer in Musiversal, right?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of people um, will book a session with me for production advice. They'll send me their rough demo. We'll talk about their ideas for it. I'll tell them what I hear, and we'll identify a direction. And sometimes that's kind of all that is needed. Other times, those people will go record, you know, um, bass and guitar, and then circle back with me with those files, and we'll program some beats around them. We'll send them back out to get some, roads laid down over the top of it, and we'll kind of just keep touching bass throughout the process until the song is done. So, yeah, I'm definitely available to work like that here as well.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, and I highly recommend you guys to have a producer chat session. Even if you know how to produce, having an extra pair of ears to listen to your track never hurts. And having someone from the outside that is not attached to your song to listen to it and give, critical feedback and make it sound much better than you expect. So yeah, so AF just realized he was behind. That's why his question came late. That's not a problem, dude. I'm just joking because this happens every stream. People just send questions last minute, but I love them because I mean we have questions. That's great. I'm not complaining. And
Yep.
Devin, thank you so much for your time today. It was an amazing stream. Everyone watching, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure to get you here all night. In 2 days, actually on Thursday, we're gonna have another live stream with Bruno Migliari, and we're gonna record double bass. We're gonna talk about recording double bass as we're gonna talk about orchestral double bass, but also or double bass in popular music. So we're gonna talk a lot about the low end of music on Thursday, and it's going to be really, really fun. And I hope to see you guys there. The Musiversal Unlimited window is still open, so if you're still on the wait list, well, stop waiting and join Unlimited, and you'll be able to enjoy these amazing musicians that we're showing. We're very proud to show off every time that we make a live stream. So thank you, Devin. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good one.